So it looks like we're still live. People throw up your comments and loves. We are sorry for the technical difficulties. As we know, there's a lot of planets in retrograde right now. A lot of weird stuff is going on. So hopefully people will rejoin us, and welcome back, Tony. So I'm going to do a very quick review since we're kind of starting a little bit over. I'm here with the amazing Tony Stockwell. This is our second time to try to keep going here. And Tony and I were just jumping on to talk about, empathy in this changing time. But really quickly to review, Tony's a wonderful medium from all over the world. You've traveled and done many things for a long time. Wonderful teacher, mentor to many, including myself, and so blessed to have you here. So Tony, let's try this again.
Okay, it'll be fine this time.
We were talking about the changing times. We were talking about mediumship, spiritual students, anybody right now feeling so much in this time. And that's where I think we just kind of got lost here. So what can you share to anybody who is, feeling sensitive, feeling empathic, and grounding in this new time?
I was before in our take one waffling on at great length, but what I sort of came up with is really, personally, I sit under an oak tree, and not everyone's got an oak tree. I appreciate that, but just sitting somewhere that's still, where you can put your bottom on the ground and it feels like you're connecting to the earth. And although that sounds a bit cliched, it does work. That's the weirdest thing. And if that doesn't work, go howl at the moon, or go cloud watching, or just do something that's of the world that actually still makes sense. Because you just say it's changing. We've not gone through this before, not in this way, and it's almost like having like a silent assassin at any corner. You don't know what's good, what's bad, if you're going to catch something or not, and you can play with your mind. So let me share this with you, though. I don't know if it's particularly apt, but I've watched this new film, Harriet. Have you seen it? The new film by Harriet Tubman. Oh, it's brilliant. And I went with Lorna Hines, Lorna from Teaneck, and her family. They took me to see it, and went to the cinema some months back, watched it, and desperately waiting for it to come out. So now I've been watching it, and if I say I've watched it 10 times, I'm not exaggerating. And I'm so impressed or marked or interested in how Harriet Tubman would feel to go left or to go right, to go forward and hang back on pure given inspiration. I think the idea is she thought that God was talking to her, to take flight or fight in one moment. And so I'd watched it one particular morning because I couldn't sleep, and then I had to go and do the weekly shop, which is my equivalent of trying to get something and negotiate humans. So I've got my gloves and my mask and my hand sanitizer and my glasses, and I'm doing the shop. And I walk down one particular aisle, and I'm going for it because I've got a lot of shopping to get for the family. And I'm rushing through the aisle, and suddenly my whole body stopped. And I just moved my shopping cart around, and I started going in the other direction. And I looked around. There was a perfectly nice man, but buying some biscuits or something like that in one of the aisles. And this overwhelming feeling of don't go near him. So I don't know what that was all about, honestly. But since I've been shopping since, I keep thinking of Harriet Tubman and how God is going to help me to stave off, to ward off some grisly thing that I can't get over because I need to be in the world longer. And I hate to think this poor man may well have succumbed to COVID-19, but you never know, do you? Because it was like a physical reaction. So this is the other thing entirely for those people listening who are sensitives in any capacity. Use your sensitivity to negotiate if you can. When to turn right and when to turn left, if it's going to be as easy as that. But I don't know. Who knows? But that's what I do. Sit under a tree and watch the Harriet Tubman film. You'll survive.
Well, it's funny that you talk about, being out in nature because and we were talking before we went live is, I've been bike riding. I've been finding that, way to play in nature in a way that kind of restores myself. And I would go walking for a while and it wasn't quite working. And so I've said a couple times in my classes and stuff that being on a bike was kind of bringing back a youth I feel like I've lost in a way. And opening up my spirit. The other day, Tony, last week, I was going down the bike trail singing to the top of my lungs, passing people. They must think you're crazy, but at the same time, it just was that reconnection I feel like has been restorative to me as well. So whether it's under a tree, like at Arthur Findlay, the big tree at Arthur Findlay, or finding those ways to connect in nature. So what were we going to say?
I was just going to say, really, when you're a child, you don't care if you're singing at the top of your voice on your bike, do you?
No.
Who cares? So yeah, you're just rediscovering your little girl inside. Yeah.
And it kind of brings that refreshing. I know we were talking about a lot and before we got cut off the first time in terms of, for me, and I'm curious to see your point of view as a working medium right now, we were talking about a lot of people seeking support, one-to-ones, as a quick review. And for me, it's been amazing to hold the light of spirit right now for the living. And I've noticed in what has been 2 decades of doing work with spirit now, to me, the energy feels stronger and more palpable than I've sensed in a long time. Even though I feel like I'm here in my kitchen and I'm not really out in public, the energy that they have with me, it's like I want to embrace everybody through the video. So I'm curious to see if you've noticed that strength or, the universal message I've seen coming up after the evidence is brought in is just that we want to hold you. We want to hold you in love. We want to hold you in grace. So I'm curious to see what you've noticed in difference or working lately with spirit as far as that connection, that energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting you should say, because, I've still been doing my mediumship, but I also incorporate soul work in that now, as a matter of fact, and good psychic. I'm now suddenly a real fan of the psychic because I've recognized that all psychic is just your own soul's knowing. So I'm working with everything and anything that comes to my mind. But I think what has come about potentially is more of a soulful element in the reading, which I don't think is brought about by the other world necessarily. I think it's supported by them. But I think, all good readers really are as good as their clients who are trying to respond to their greatest need. And I think the clients that we see, their agendas changed. Mm-hmm. So as their agendas change, the quality of our information changes too. So a lot of my, I like to call my normal clients, because I read for us plus normal people who might normally seek me out because they've lost their mom or their job's changing or whatever it might be. Suddenly I find myself talking about their purpose in life and what really is going to bring them a greater sense of happiness in ways and at length where that may have not have come up before in the same way. It feels ever so slightly different. And this is what I've been thinking the last number of weeks. I think people have changed. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine, someone's coming to see the likes of yourself or me or anybody else that reads, they might say to their work colleague, well, I'm having a reading tonight. Oh, I'm hoping for, new lover, new cooker, whatever it might be that they're looking for, or, a reunion of their father. But maybe it's still all of those things, plus a little bit of guidance in a changing world. So that's become part of their need. Therefore, as it continues to be part of their need, the way we read will be for always changed.
I think that's brilliant. Of course, because I agree with you. I've noticed also in my work, Tony, that while spirit is there, the purpose, the constant alignment of people wanting to be more in their purpose, more interconnected in where their soul's calling. And I feel like when we go through, for me, my big shift of stepping into spirit was 9/11. That was a big shift for me. And now I feel like we're in such an even bigger magnitude of people reaching and seeking. And yet there's a vulnerability in folks as well. Is there anything that you would share for people who are seeking to connect, or understand how they can move through that seeking at this time? There's a lot of us out there, you, me, my, many colleagues that are putting things out there. How might you guide people to listen to that inner voice and step further into alignment with their heart's calling?
Yeah, well, I think that's it's something that we all do at some point in our life. If there's a chink of light that can enter the human experience, or you start looking beyond all things human, which it could also be awesome human things too, creating a home, creating a family, great people, fun, joyful picnics, all those kinds of things. Then something happens in life that for some we start to recognize there's got to be more than this. There's got to be something else. And then we start to yearn and seek. And that yearning can be an uncomfortable feeling. It's not always a great feeling of believing something's missing and it's unobtainable. It is slightly outside of our reach. Until we read something, hear someone speak, overhear somebody else's conversation, and we start to resonate. So years ago, my sister's friend started speaking about mediums. I was only a kid, and oh my God, I remember it now. The absolute feeling of, oh my God, what's she talking about? I need that, and resonating with that particular message or story. So people going forward, how do they connect to something in themselves? How do they connect with something beyond their human? Is, I suppose, to firstly want to be changed, want to live differently, feel that there is something more than just their normal lives, which can also, again, be fine. And then seek out diligently what it is their soul needs to hear. And it's not certainly always going to be the way of mediums. Certainly not. I don't think we always get it right as mediums. Not at all. And, Lauren, as you said, we've been to India together. It was a year and a bit ago now, wasn't it?
A little over a year and a half ago now.
It feels like yesterday. It's just crazy. But, a year and a half ago, we were in India together doing all sorts of crazy, wonderful things. So it may well be somebody is pulled to one of the Indian mystics as opposed to you or I. Somebody else might be pulled to, the great late works of Maya Angelou, or the poetry of Rumi, or the religion of Sikhism. And it doesn't really matter. It's just pulled to something that's outside of their normal human experience. And when something pulls you, go with it. But go with it until it feels less appealing, but then look at something else. We must be very careful not to become fundamental. I want to become a Buddhist, I said. I need to become a Buddhist now. I'm not a very good Buddhist. So then stop becoming a Buddhist. Just become something else. Just become you, and allow these things to be as stepping stones to a path of inspiration where it sounds funny, but it's true. Where you find your God, you find your God self. Mm-hmm. And there's many ways and many separate pathways to get to that space. Till the yearning, seek out that which stimulates a greater sense of knowing. Because in truth, all that we ever need to know is already within us.
I love it.
It's just remembering, isn't it? It's all it is. It's a cycle of remembering.
And I feel that as we remember, we talk about being in India, and I know that I almost said Egypt, which is, I know, a place that you and I both want to eventually get to as well when traveling is available again. And reconnecting, for me, reconnecting with these spaces. So like you're saying, and I agree, I always say, look at it as tools in your box. You know, seeking spirituality is a wonderful tool. There's many ways in which spirituality is expressed, as you're saying, through mediumship or Buddhism, and if you're not sure where you're going, explore, and don't take one if it doesn't feel like it fits like the perfect puzzle piece and throw it away, but put it as a tool in the box. I've always jokingly said I feel like a spiritual mutt. I've studied a little bit about a lot of things, and some things I've taken a deeper dive into, and yet they come through our work sometimes, don't they? The ability to connect with somebody from a different religion or faith because we've taken the time to understand it, helps us understand where people are coming from. So I think it's an amazing time to play with spirituality and studies, and bring about that support. So what I want to do here for everybody who's tuning in, as you all know, I'm here with Tony Stockwell, amazing medium and full of always insightful wisdom. And I know some comments are popping up here. So if you have any quick questions that you would like us to talk about in terms of moving through this time or mediumship or spirituality, we'll definitely try to put a question here to Tony. One thing I want to share really quickly in the middle of our time, Tony and I, as well as many other wonderful mediums, such as our friend James Van Prague, actually Janelle Campbell, who came to India with us, Paul Jacobs, and oh my God, there's so many, Mavis Patilla, Lynn Probert, are all part of this wonderful program called Medium Mentors. And that will be going live in the end of June here. So for any of you who are studying spirit mediumship and really want to take a dive to a wonderful summit of, I think, almost 18 different mediums from all over the world, where we share different stories, you can check that out at mediummentors.com, which I'll put in the comments later, or follow at Spirit's Voice. And the wonderful Danielle, who put that program together, really put a lot of work into that. So with that little quick, I'm going to share a couple things here and see if anybody has any questions. Oh, someone's asking this, and I think this is really important. And a feeling as a medium sometimes, and I really have not had this issue as of late, but I've had this issue in the past. And I don't know that it's really so much our own ego that's getting in the way, but someone's asking as a medium, do you ever feel like you struggle connecting with spirit or have a hard time, or that might feel challenging, and how might you move through that?
No, because I'm marvelous. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, all the time, yeah. And it's kind of crazy because we all can have readings. We close our eyes, or we cast our eyes to the side, and it's just strong and it's just easy, and we cannot believe how marvelous we're being on that given day. But there are days and there are readings, for the best will in the world, somebody's looking at us and saying, look, it's my dad, just so it's easier. And we are just all over the show. You know, we imagine all sorts of, absolutely we struggle, of course we do. And so, that never gets any easier. There will be times when we all struggle, be clear. Now, it's how we handle that struggle. So a little piece of advice: when you're trying to be with somebody with a real need and desire to communicate with a person, stop saying big things first, which doesn't really make sense. When it is a struggle, you know it to be so, work subtly. Work to build the personality and the persona and the characteristics and the mannerisms and the joyful things they had in life. And you'll be surprised how a good link, well, seemingly a difficult link, can move into a good link if you allow it to evolve. As opposed to someone that might approach any of us and say, I'm looking for a communication from my mum. And then we as a medium sit there straining and shouting out, who's Yvonne, Diane, Pauline, Veronica? And we're going for a name first. Bang, ba, bang, ba, bang, ba, bang. And that's hard. I mean, it's doable. Of course it's doable, absolutely. And we can all do it on a really good day. But when it's not a really good day, for whatever reason, work gently and recognize the vast majority of times that good communications, they evolve and they gently grow. And that's not me saying be completely vague and hope for the best. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying work subtly and allow them wonderful things to manifest. And it's not, this is the whole thing again, that mediumship isn't an exact science. And so I don't want to talk about all the stories that I may or may not have, but it was only a number of weeks ago I read for a gentleman. It's always a man, of course. And I brought through his dad, and then I brought through his mum, and I thought he was all right, I have to say. Some ages, some occupations, and some infirmity, and a bit of Alzheimer's, and all the things you talk about, someone's human as real. And then he looked at me out thereafter and said, what was my nickname for my mother? And I thought, oh, I don't know. And then what popped into my mind was a simple enough name. I think it was Diane or Diana or something. And he said, no. I said, what is that name? That was her name, but that's not what I'm looking for. And then I thought, now listen, some people are never going to be happy. Do you know? So what seemingly would feel like a bad day for some clients is marvelous for other clients. Tonight I read for a gentleman, an older man whose mother came through in quite simple ways, a lady of a great age who were with her when she passed, who could not have been kinder and nicer to me and thanked me profusely for bringing through his mother. And then we had some more information, but it was easy because he was really relaxed and really appreciated whatever came. For some people, unless you mention the combination of the safe, it's never going to be enough. So listen, in answering that question in a very waffling fashion, I'm sorry. I struggle. We all struggle. Don't let the others tell you they don't, because they absolutely they do. When we struggle, work subtly and allow good communication to evolve. That's what I think.
I love it. And I think sometimes in there, Tony, I've had to learn that if I have to check in with my own soul, my own heart space, and how am I feeling? How am I doing as a person in this moment? Am I dealing with a lot of emotional stuff? And honoring sometimes a break in the work. Have you ever had to do that where you work like crazy? I know you fly all over the place. And sometimes when I pick you up at the airport, you've just come, visit us from somewhere else. How do you take a moment for your own heart, your own soul to just rest and breathe when we're sometimes always, for folks like myself and yourself, or we're always in constant motion?
I don't know. I'm very good at it, to be honest with you. I was looking through my diary of this year, all the things that I've not done so far because, of all of this going on. And I was looking yesterday at the diary thinking, how the hell was I going to get from there to there and fit some family time in and see the dog and what the hell was I doing? I don't think I'm very good at it at all. But there are weeks like that. But then there are other weeks. It's normal and lovely, thank God. And it's all fine at home. But when I'm on the road or I'm busy doing readings, and lots of people can concur, being busy, running from one thing to another. I think I try to be chilled and having a bit of recreational time on a bus, on the tube, on a plane, walking, in a hotel room. I remember it was only last year and I got to New Jersey. I was working for Janet at the church in Journey Within. And my flight got in and my car picked me up and I got to the hotel. It was like 6 o'clock in the evening and I didn't have to be at the church till 9. It felt like a week off. I swear to God. I got to my room. I ran over to the shops, got some provisions. Must have laid on my bed after a shower at 7. I felt like someone had given me a holiday. I watched back-to-back nonsense on my iPad whilst eating complete nonsense on the bed. And I really felt massively recharged from just having a few hours of R&R. So, find it where you can and recognize that even though at times we'd want lots of time to ourselves to do one thing or the other people's needs have to go before our own. And what it's shown me today, because the 2 or 3 times I've worked today where people have lost their kids.
Mm.
Do you know? So what if I'm tired? So what, Lauren, if you're a bit sleepy? We crack on.
Yeah.
Got a headache. So what? Let's move.
Today,
Because there's a huge need out there.
yeah. And today was one that I feel like in the same way, Tony, I know. And one thing I want to come back to, and then we have a really great question that just came in from somebody. We had mentioned the first attempt here, and I know we were rambling on before we realized that live wasn't going, is, you know, we may not have always seen this coming, but in a weird way, I think on a soul level, we were aware that a shift was happening. I look at it as, you know, so many people I've noticed, and I'm curious to see if you've seen this, Tony, in your work, where I've had clients that were like, oh my God, I quit my job right before COVID hit, or, you know, I went through this transformation and then the virus, you know, kind of spread out, or people losing a loved one just in time, you know, feeling like a loved one had crossed right before. And the way it showed up for me was I actually had a journey to India plan with our friend Hazel for March. And way back in October, I had the wherewithal because the energy just wasn't gelling right to let go of the journey. And I'm grateful because I would have been in Egypt with the group having to cancel India at the beginning of March, knowing that the virus was coming up. So on a soul level, do you agree that our consciousness knows that sometimes a shift is coming, even though we're not getting it in the mental peripheral sense?
Absolutely. I mean, totally slightly different in as much I think our soul self knows.
Yeah.
And that soul's knowing doesn't always have a chance to bubble up into the conscious knowingness of the human. So I think on a subconscious level we know, yada yada. But I think on this idea is our soul is this powerful, marvelous, sentient being. And then as we speak, you know, you and I and the others listen, and they speak, and somebody else listens to them. It's always a very watered down version of all the power that we are and all the wisdom that we have. Because it's having to filter through a brain and through earth emotions and so on and so forth. So I think on a soul level, we probably have discussed it beforehand. We probably all knew. It's just that our humans didn't know, or if we had an inkling, didn't have a reference to interpret it. Now, this would be very interesting because God forbid in some years' time we get another similar pandemic, because we've already lived through it. The psychics, seers, and wise people amongst us may well say, something's coming. And we know what it is because we've got a reference for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, as we speak, we often say mediumship is the mirror of the mind, but unless we don't know, we have something in the mind, we can't interpret that feeling as the thing that it is, because we don't recognize what is that. We never encountered it before. Yeah.
And I find sometimes it's like out of the mouths of babes. I remember, like, are you going to do another journey in 2021? I don't know what's blinking, but we're still live, it looks like, hopefully. The sense of, I kept saying, no, I'm going to be grounded for the rest of 2020. I'm going to stay home. And it's almost like, again, a knowing, you know, and I find that different people may have had that moment there. So I think what looks like we're still live. I know there was a little beep in, but it looks like on Facebook we're still live. So what I want to do is try to handle one more question, because I know it's late in your world over there. So one beautiful question that just came in is, someone was asking how to get the most out of a reading if you're the one going in as the sitter, which I think is really brilliant. If I'm going to get a reading, what would you tell somebody in maybe preparation or openness to receive, and how they can best get the most out of that?
Yeah, well, thank you. There's a certain amount of prep, certainly. So, you know, as a reader, Lauren, the last thing you ever want is someone to get lost and get late and run into your reading space panting, stressed, because then you've got to get through all of their stuff before you can feel their need. So if you're going for a reading, and the question is from a perspective of a sitter, isn't it, as opposed to me, arrive on time, whether it be on Zoom or in person. Be calm. If you use the bathroom, so to be so correct. Take some water, so all your human is administered to. Prior to that, consider your need. Now, if your need is a human one, consider really what you're looking from the reading without being too rigid. If yours is a spiritual one, be kind of aware of the kind of direction and understanding you might want to receive, i.e. my life's purpose. I wonder what that might be. I wonder what she'll pick up with that. And if it's a spirit person, don't just go in there, yeah, anyone will do. If you've got a need to connect with your mother, take a photograph, take something she owned. Think of her in very familiar and kind ways. In the morning, call her to come close to you. In the same way you might call guardian souls and other soul beings to come close and spend this time with you. And maybe, which is quite cute, maybe even sit prior to leaving your home or to turning on your computer to have the Zoom and call out to the soul of your medium. You know, so on a soul's level, you're already communicating as two sentient, incarnate soul beings. Come share with me, come help me, I'll be calm with you. Because really in a reading, what happens is your medium is resonating with your sitter on a soul level. So there's already a communion there. And if they follow then instinctively how to administer best for the soul being incarnate, and so they may well share, the incarnate soul being may share, talk about my human's work, talk about my human's grief, talk about my human's mother, you know, and so it's all on a soul level. And so if you and I, Lauren, was to say to someone, you know, you're just about to lose your job, I think you may be having a baby, I think you'll be married in 6 months' time, that information comes on a soul's level, because your soul reaches out to feel the experience of the soul being in front of you. And so be open to work on a myriad and a multi-layered way of working, dealing with the human, dealing with the soul, dealing with the souls who come through. And don't allow other people to limit who and what souls come through. I'm so tired by people saying, don't ever bring a guardian spirit. Why not? Because it's not evidential. Well, if you've been given a Benedictine monk all your life, every time you go for a reading, I think that's hugely evidential. So I think now we have to look at a much wider way of working with souls. And either way, don't let other people tell you what to believe, how to receive, and where to go in your inquiry, and the readers where you're willing to go with your client. We should respond to their need entirely.
I love it. And I did lie. I do have one more question.
Okay. I'm fine.
It was coming in intuitively, and you kind of talked about it. And you said something, and I think this is happening more in my work. It's something I've always worked with anyways, the guides, connecting to our higher guides and energies. And what was coming up in me as you were talking, and Tony, how do you connect with your guidance? What does that look like for you? You know, I've seen in trance work that your guides communicate through you, but as a waking soul walking the planet, when you're not in trance, is there a way that you commune or connect, or what does that process of guidance look like for you?
Oh, it was a lovely question. Thank you. Well, it comes firstly in waves of inspiration, which is the language of the soul. Waves of inspired thought and imagery, foggy or clear, as what I feel they're trying to remind my human. But in truth, if I really want to know the way forward for something, I will go into trance. I'll sit on my own, go into trance, allow Zinda to come close to me. Because, I mean, people probably don't know a lot about trance, but he's so real to me when he comes. And I feel him come close, and I sit in sort of silent communion with him. And as he moves to the side of my mind, I'm sort of left with an imprint almost of what it is I need to know. Yeah, so I'm very lucky to have that bond, which I would encourage other people to feel that bond. And trance communication or trance blending is just uncharted territory in most of us. But when you find a bond of souls in that way, you're so confident in your spirit work, because you know you who are supported by spirits. And then I don't want to be too much here, but I hear a lot of other people moaning about stuff with spirit stuff. You know what? Listen, other mediums, other psychics, other seers, and anyone on a committee of anything. And you hear the negativity and the moaning and shouldn't and can't and won't. And I just breathe in and think, no, you're not in sync. If you're constantly moaning, you cannot be in sync with your true purpose and their support of you. I'm not saying don't ever moan. I'm not saying that. But when it's constant and always negative and backbiting and clawing at our other soul friends, well, I want to do a Maya Angelou. Not in my house, you won't. Yeah, not in my house, you won't. Yeah, you can't. Working with souls, Lauren, as you know, you don't stop laughing. So it's a joyful thing, isn't it?
I absolutely believe that our core desire, our ultimate calling in our soul is to be joy. And while I know the human journey is not easy, and even right now, it almost feels moments when I do feel joy, it's almost guilty, you know, when there's so much going on and I have a joyful moment, I've got to go, wait, no, this is the essence of my soul. This is allowed. But I agree with you, Tony, in a sense, and thank you so much. That's actually a very intimate moment. I know, talking about our guides and how we relate with them. And I think in our world as mediums and as intuitives, sometimes that's an interesting game or conversation. But I believe that we all have this amazing relationship with the higher divine, however you want to look at that. Yeah. And I think it's really wonderful that you shared how to connect. But I do agree that we're in a time where there is sometimes negative, or I like the moaning. And for me, it's not always been an easy journey being a medium, but I have loved every step of the way, as much as I've had struggle and strife and disconnect sometimes with other colleagues, you know. At the end of the day, I've learned to beat my own drum and be my own medium. And I think that when we step into that and just love that we are all trying to be of service, yes, to the best that we can be, that we're really stepping into the light of who we are. So I love how you're saying that if you're moaning about it, you're not in alignment, because if you're moaning about this work, then it shouldn't be that feeling. For me, it's always been, and I say that when I landed here from, as you know, I was saying I landed just before Corona hit. I had 1 week of recovery, and then I was pivoted right into working. I didn't take a break. I just said, okay, we're moving online and sessions are going this way. Yeah. And so that calling to service, I think, means that we show up and work in the best way we can.
Absolutely right. And you've been busy, eh? You've been busy. It's been
a blessing, but tremendously busy, and offering, you know, to me, what we're doing to give back in any way we can from, you know, these lives. Like, thank you for being here tonight. This is a way that we can give love freely, and I appreciate you coming in to share it with our community here. But doing everything we can I'm doing everything I can to be as available as possible and still nurture my soul and take care of my being. But the calling to sit here and do this while I've been, you know, and be online as much as possible with clients has just been the feeling. So
now, have you found, and I'm talking to yourself and all the other readers that are listening, but you know, it feels similar, eh, to being in front of someone. The energy.
I'm having no issues. I almost feel like the power of spirit and energy has been so strong that this is some of the best work I've done in 20 years. And there are days, like today was a heavy day with all the emotions and the energy of what's going on, but like you just breathe through it. And I find that even though I'm going through emotional moments, when I connect with spirit, that all goes away. And for that hour that I'm with somebody, it's like I'm here, and that fills me with joy and love to just heal in that way for me as well.
Beautiful. No, it's a beautiful thing, and we have to remember that. And you know, you said earlier about, you know, you feel a bit guilty about laughing, you know, in this current environment. I was dead close with my aunt, who's now passed, bless her, and she was my great aunt, but I was very, very close with her. And she was a real girl. She was funny, loved to drink. Oh, she's terrible. And loved to party, even though she was older, then she was still the same. But she'd always tell us during the war, goes back a bit, isn't it? She was probably a 20-year-old girl. during the war, she had the best times. And she would always say, the happiest time of my life was in the war. I think she was courted by a number of American sort of servicemen. I think that was the plan. But she had the best of times during the war. And I remember some of my other aunts thinking, what is she talking like that for? It's a terrible time. But she made the most of that time. And I'm not saying we don't, honor people's sacrifice. And it is terrible, absolutely, for some. And some people are losing their lives. But I think that's something in our soul work that we adapt and make the most of. And we have, I suppose, a duty to remain up. Because if we go down emotionally, we're no good to God nor man. How are we going to serve that next person who needs to speak with us tomorrow? We're so emotionally on the floor. So we have to be very mindful, and the best we can do is to heal, love, share. And this is a little, it's not, I should tell you anyway, daily, the papers and whatnot we have here, and it's so has passed, and so this happened. And I never know what to do. And about a year ago, I thought, I don't know what to do. Something was on the paper. So I literally just put the paper on the table, and I put my hands over the face of the person or the story that I was reading, closed my eyes and tried to heal the story in the paper, or try to heal the story of the girl that went missing. And it's all you can do, but I think it's powerful if we all get into a habit of doing that. We can only do so much, but as long as we're doing something and still laughing, because we'll have to keep ourselves vital and in the space.
With that, Tony, thank you again for your time and energy today. And I think what I loved as what you were saying, and it kind of reminds me, I was in Peru, my first journey to Peru almost 15 years ago. And with ayahuasca, one of the things that we were told when we're doing plant medicine was, when you're in a dark space, send love. And love will carry you through the darkness. And to this day, I have always taken those words as not just in a shamanic journey of such a nature, but anywhere that we are feeling. And I think that's just a great way to maybe even end with tonight for all of you who are out there. And I know Tony, I'm sure, is in my heart and mind as we say that we are sending love and grace and joy and healing to everybody out there and in this crazy time and in this changing time. Wherever you can send love, everybody send love to whatever cause, whatever energy, and support the best way you feel you can in this moment, one day at a time, one breath at a time, and let love get you out of that darkness. Tony, you're amazing, and I adore you. I'm so grateful you were here tonight and joining us. For anybody who's still with us, Tony, you can learn more about at tonystockwell.com if you are new to Tony, or if you're very familiar. Some of my friends here, I'm sure, have studied with you. We hope to get you back here in the US at some point, or I think in maybe December we'll talk about it. We'll put out some online stuff for our local community. But we have always loved you here in New England, and I look forward to the day we get you back here.
I'm looking forward to it already. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely. And Tony, is there any last words that you just want to share with everybody?
Last words. I think the thing always comes to my mind that just is suitable for all occasions, and that is just learning to be kind, and kinder to ourselves first of all, and forgive ourselves of all the stuff we've ever been, and look back at your 16-year-old self, your 26-year-old self, your 46-year-old self, whatever it is you're up to, and recognize that's not who you are now. We talk about past lives. I think we have many lives in this life. You are renewed every single day. You can't change it. Move on. Change it from tomorrow and live accordingly. Be kind to yourself, kind to other people, kind in your language, kind in your thoughts. Don't get embroiled where people that are meant to be sharing light are actually pretending and are actually in a dark space themselves. And that's something that's very important to me recently. I'm having to let people go that I think they're not light workers. They're dancing in your light, but they're not emitting their own. Ooh. And so, yeah, just make sure we're giving our light and sharing it accordingly. Because I would hate to be accused to only be dancing in somebody else's light.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's what I think. But thank you, Lauren. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. I do wish you all the best of everything. Hope your life is fabulous, and hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Absolutely. And to all of you out there, we appreciate you joining in, and I will go back through the comments and answer any other questions that were there. But thank you, Tony Stockwell, the amazing Tony Stockwell. And if you want to join us on Media Mentors at that wonderful summit, you'll see more from Tony, myself, and many others. And for more about me, I should just put a little quick out there. I've got some classes, and I'm creating some new online kind of healing shamanic programs coming up for the year to do some deep dive into the soul and the heart healing. So to stay on my newsletter, laurenrainbow.com, register, and you can learn more about those upcoming events. We love you all. Have a gorgeous night. Be well and stay healthy. Take care.